wants to be up and down, so you had to stand right there the whole night.
Is that the more swimming dude? 'Cause
Yes.
that's what I do.
It's nice. It looks really good. You're gonna love it.
Okay.
We're ready? Okay, we're ready to go. All right, thanks for coming tonight. Last month, we talked about a gap from where our students are and where their potential is. Our educational system is limiting, in a sense, where they can get to because of this gap. And there's really two reasons for that. There's kind of two paths that we need to think about how we educate our youth. One of them is what to think, and the other one is how to think. That really distinguishes the difference between the two. When we focus so much on the content of our classes, from an informational perspective, what is the information that they need to learn to be successful? And if that's all we focus on, it limits where they can get to. Because the lesson from that system is I think that's how you spell it. There's two lessons that you learn from teaching them what to think: how to be obedient, and then how to be punctual. And those are what is rewarded in the marketplace when they're looking for work, for jobs. They get really good at that, then people want to hire them.
Really good for factory workers.
Okay, good for factory work. So we talked about the history of education, how we went to this model primarily to help condition us to be able to work in the factory setting, which is I want to say this nicely, a lot of repetitive work and a lot of being directed about how to do things. We don't want somebody who's trying to build a Ford truck over and over and over again to be creative about how they put that together, right? We want it to be predictable. So if the workers are able to be obedient and do everything they're asked to do over and over and over again, they can show up to work on time, they take breaks on time, they get back to work on time. That's a very predictable and manageable work environment, right? The challenge is this has created a gap in our society between elites and the masses. Because the elites don't follow this model with their children. They teach them a how to think model. And so that's what we really want to focus on, is how can we not completely reject this, because information is a really important part of an education. What we know is incredibly important. If we know what to do with what we know, then that's even better. We can elevate the level of education. So tonight I really want to talk about how do we teach our youth how to think. I think we got this done pretty well. This is a pretty known model, right? We can come up with curriculum and content, whether it's science or math or history. That one is pretty well developed, and we can just plug and play. How do we supplement that with something else, with an approach that helps us get to where they are learning how to think? So this quest begins here. You can't reveal what it is because you already know. Anybody guess what this is?
Mediterranean?
A dinosaur.
I kind of saw Italy.
Mediterranean, Italy. Okay.
The narrow piece of land between,
The narrow neck of land. All right.
Business.
Okay, yes, this is Italy, and this is Greece. Okay? So the story begins back in ancient times. This is what happened with the Trojan War. Here's a city called Troy. Right? And the story goes, as Homer tells it, there are three goddesses that were competing to see who is the prettiest goddess. And the three went to Zeus, who's the king of the gods, right? And they say, Zeus, you need to solve this problem because we're trying to figure out who is the prettiest. And Zeus is a pretty smart guy. He says, I am not touching that with anything. Go find somebody else. So they come across this man named Paris. He's out in his fields and he's just working, and the three goddesses come up and they say, hey, can you help solve this problem that we have between us? And he's not as smart as Zeus, so he says, sure, what's the problem? And so they explain the situation, and each of them offers him a bribe to pick her. So one of them says, hey, if you pick me, all the riches of the world are yours. You won't want for anything. The second goddess says, well, I can top that. If you pick me, you'll be the most famous person in all the world. So do you want fame or do you want riches? Because fame, you can get riches with fame. So that's more important. The third goddess said, hey, what you need is love, right? You pick me, then you can have the most beautiful woman in all the world. So what does he pick? He picks love, of course, right? So Paris is offered. He goes on a boat trip down here, and he meets the most beautiful woman in the world named Helen. They fall in love. The problem is she's already married. So this creates a little bit of a problem, okay? While her husband is out conquering somewhere, Paris and Helen elope, and they go back to Troy. Husband comes back, Menelaus, and he's pretty upset.
And he's got an army behind him.
And he's got a few friends, okay? Including his brother Agamemnon, who is kind of the head king of all of these kings. And Agamemnon says, hey, no problem, we'll get an army, let's go to Troy, and we're gonna take her back. So they start gathering all the great men of Greece. Over on this side, there's a man named Odysseus. Odysseus finds out about this that Agamemnon is recruiting all the great warriors. And he actually doesn't want any part of it. He says, nah, that's not really my thing. I just want to be retired, be on my farm, just be with my wife. And they're about to have a new son, so I just want to be here to raise my son. So Agamemnon's recruiters end up going around and they come to Odysseus and they're trying to talk him into going. And rather than just say no, because that's not the royal thing to do, he pretends that he's gone mad. And they're not going to want some guy that's out of his mind to go with him to fight. So he takes his plow, he's out on the beach with all the rocks and he's plowing like he's about to plant the field. Think that he's crazy, right? He's trying to show them just how crazy he is. But they suspect something. They suspect maybe he's not really being completely honest with them. So they take his newborn son and they throw the son in front of the plow to see if he's going to run over his son, to really show if he's mad or not. And of course he doesn't. So the ruse is up. He gets recruited and they all go back to Troy. All right? So they're here for 10 years fighting this battle. It's a long, extended war. His son has grown up to 10 years by the time the battle's over. And then it takes him another 10 years to get back. And it's where the word Odyssey comes from. One challenge after another, over and over and over again. It's like he was never going to get back, but all he wants to do is get back.
Cyclops.
The Cyclops, whole bunch of things. So, what does this have to do with learning how to think? I wonder if you're asking that question by now. Where are you going? All right. Before he left, Odysseus needed to leave somebody in charge of raising his son while he was gone. And it had to be somebody that he really, really trusted, that would do what he would do in his absence. Okay. He picked a family friend whose name was mentor, which is where we get the word mentor. So a mentor is someone who is more than just a teacher. They are someone who is left in charge with a very important responsibility. To act as if the one with the responsibility would act in the place. Okay? This is one of the keys to be able to solve this riddle. How do we learn how to think? And it's by having high quality mentors that know how to think so that they can teach how to think. Does that make sense? Now, here's the trick. Who is the mentor for your child? You have students here, some of you are mentors here. Who's the mentor for your child? Not a rhetorical question, you're welcome to answer. Who's the mentor?
I am.
You are?
Yeah, I hope so.
If you're the mentor, why would you say, so given the story of Odysseus and mentor, if you're filling the role of mentor, who's filling the role of Odysseus in that relationship?
Point.
God.
Nobody or God?
Or we're presupposing that we're gone, and we're not.
Or we're presupposing that we're God?
Well, in the story, he left, right? He was gone for 20 years.
Odysseus left.
Yeah, we're not gone. I mean, I
So I guess the
imagine we
question-
can play that role to some extent.
Okay?
So the question would be, do you need a mentor if the parent is involved?
So if the mentor's the mentor,
I would say that you absolutely need a mentor. I don't know about all the rest of your kids, but my oldest daughter, love her to death, very sharp, very observant, but she has some of my tendencies. And one of those tendencies is that my parents taught me things and told me things for years, and it went in one ear and out the other. But as soon as somebody who was in that mentor role for me told me the exact same thing, almost word for word, it stuck. And I took that, I internalized it. And my daughter, it's the same thing. My wife and I will tell her or teach her the same, we'll teach her something, and she's like, yeah, whatever, Dad, that kind of thing. But as soon as one of her teachers here, or mentors here, says almost the exact same thing word for word, she's like, yeah, I learned this really cool thing today.
so glad you learned that lesson.
That's the hardest part right there.
All right, so the cool thing about a classic story.
I was just gonna say, they're gonna have someone, there's gonna be someone other than us in that role for certain, but it will be by design or default. So if we have no say in it, it will be social media
Okay.
and,
That's interesting.
whatever the current vibe is.
Okay, so the cool thing about a classic story like that is there are multiple levels of interpretation that I can bring into it. My perspective, I believe that there is this relationship in my life. As a parent, I'm mentor in one respect, and God is trusting me with the child that has come to my home. In another respect, I'm also a parent looking for second witnesses for what I'm trying to teach my children. And I'm relying on other people that come into their lives to teach them things that I would like to teach, but for whatever reason, they're not listening or hearing it from me, or I don't have the capacity to teach. There's things that are beyond what I'm ready to do, so I look for people that can help. And it's a community. And if we don't think about this, I don't know how to diagram this. A student is gonna have a lot of voices. So if it's not by design, it'll be by default. And they're gonna find mentors in their lives, right?
So it's part of, I just finished the book, The 5 Love Languages for Teenagers, and it's part of their, becoming, transitioning to an independent adult is kind of pulling away a little bit from their parents. Like you're still keeping that relationship going with them and building it and stuff, but it makes sense that they would be reaching out and looking to others also. So it's strategically trying to plan people that are going to be good influences and good mentors for them.
I think a lot of times that one of the reasons the kids get so excited about something they learned, it's probably because it's familiar. They're like, wow, that's amazing. I mean, I'm pretty sure parents have already planted that seed long ago. So when they hear it again, I think they're more excited about it because it probably is familiar truth that they probably feels like a good old friend, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the idea about behind the second witness, right? I am really looking for other people to help me raise my children. Because it takes more than what I can do. There's a path that's very natural and healthy that we follow as we go from birth to adulthood. At birth, 100% self-centered. Something hurts, I cry, somebody fixes it, right? I'm hungry, I'm dirty, whatever it is, I'm tired, I just cry and magically my problem gets solved for me. As they get older, there are a couple of really key time periods where they are learning to be more other-oriented. They start to have the capacity here for more abstract thinking, so they can start to think about the world outside of themselves. And they come up with archetypes or patterns. So parent and child is something that they can start to distinguish. They are not their parents anymore. They are their own self. They start to think about friends. So all these different entities now become people that they can start to pay attention to. And 12 is a place where puberty kind of kicks in, and this really comes into play. So as we are teaching our children to become adults, this transition from self to other is one that we really want to try to manage. Some people never really grow out of their self, and they live life self-centered. So as you think about mentoring,
I feel like that needs a little jump like this when they're like 17. It needs to go back up to itself.
So it actually
When it
looks,
kicks in, it's kind of like a reset button. It's-
Yeah, it's like they start over and then they
yeah,
go
the
back
beginning
up.
of puberty I think looks more like this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an EKG for a minute.
That's a really good improvement, right? So, here's a question then. If we need higher quality mentors, and I'm one of those mentors for my child. What makes a great mentor on the path for learning how to think? What are some key qualities maybe that you can think of that would, you could say, you know what, that would be something that would be really important? A skill or a perspective, an attitude, or a habit? What are some things that would make a really high quality mentor? Yeah.
I'm halfway guessing what you, where you're headed, but I think a mentor is someone who shares what they've learned unguarded. And
Honest.
yeah, they're honest about it. There's a really great book by John Wooden on mentorship where he talks about that. And I think from a tactical standpoint, you know, great mentors who assist people in how they think are really great at framing questions and using active listening.
Okay. Unguarded is a good word. So, you're not so much caught up in how they think about you as a mentor as how important it is for them to develop and grow things. So you'll do things that maybe are uncomfortable for you with the benefit of being they're gonna be better for it, right?
I was gonna say, and then you kind of said that. There has to be a relationship of trust. So it can't be, I'm gonna teach you, you listen to me. If they don't have an opportunity to feel like they're contributing to the relationship, then you can't teach them anything.
Okay.
So I think that one of the things we can do as parents and mentors is trying to build that relationship of trust where our kids feel like we are listening to them, we are, even when we're drawing lines in the sand, we are listening to them and respecting them. It sometimes is hard with kids, but it's really important, especially when they get to be in college age, where you're like, "Ooh, I'm glad they can talk to me about this," you know?
Yeah. Good. Other ideas?
Oh, I was just gonna hit on that trust thing. That's, I think that's a really crucial detail in all of this. Stephen M. R. Covey wrote a book called The Speed of Trust, and it lays out how that is one of the key foundation blocks for any relationship, whether it's parent to child, spouse to spouse, employer to employee, whatever, that you have to have that relationship of trust in order to be able to have any kind of a positive effect on someone else, so.
I think along with that, you have to know that they care about you to some extent before, you know, that you have to know that a mentor would have your best interest at heart, that they care about you, that there's some kind of love there. And maybe maybe that just is in there with relationship of trust, but.
I think you're right. I think the mentor sees what they actually can be beyond what they are today.
Okay, I'm gonna use a word. It's a Greek word. The Greeks were really into love, right? It's like the Eskimos were really into snow. They have all these words for snow. Greeks were really into love, so they have all these different words for love. They have a different word for motherly love, different word for brotherly love, a different word for romantic love. Right? So they have all these different words for love. There's one is called agape. It's not any of those, but it's all of those together, right? It's like a higher level of love. It's often in the New Testament interpreted or translated as charity. Yeah. I had a mentor that taught me this word as a higher level of awareness, which I think was really, really insightful. Because love is getting outside of ourselves and seeing the other and becoming aware of those needs in order for me to be able to act on those needs. So being able to get to that higher level of awareness is how I increase my agape love. And I think as a mentor, you know, it's not, if it's a parent-child, then that's that's kind of a combination of that love, right? There's a motherly love, a fatherly love. In addition to this higher level of awareness, we can add that too. My mentor role at the school, there's not familial love, but there is this, the charity component, right?
I would say, also, if you're a good mentor, you're worthy of respect, right? And your competency of the topic and also kind of your character.
Okay.
Like, you can have a loyal person that loves you, this is definitely respect and love, like, I'm actually better at this than you.
Yeah.
Why are you teaching me?
So there's a level of competence, okay?
Well, that's why I can't always be the parent.
So that level of competence is why we need other mentors, because
Yeah.
they, the teenagers grow up and they know better than parents, right? So we need other, more competent mentors in their lives, right? And then character, I think that's a really important part of that. So these are all great. I want to try to sum this up with, if I want to teach somebody how to think, I kind of need to know how to think and practice how to think to be effective at doing that. So this is really the question. How do I increase my capacity as a mentor? How do I learn how to think? The what to think comes with my competence. There's information that I need to know. But then there's this other practice, this how to think, that has really got me thinking for many years about how I can be a better mentor by learning how to think. And then I'm getting a little bit abstract. I promise we're gonna get to something practical and useful. But I'm trying to emphasize this path to kind of get our minds there. And we're gonna go through an activity tonight to practice this, learning how to think, okay? I'm not trying to assume anything about you by saying, here, we're gonna learn how to think tonight, okay? With respect to becoming a better mentor, I'm gonna put mentor parent, okay? There's kind of a dash between those. You're the primary mentor for these children that come to this school. And so you really have the primary responsibility to help us as mentors do what we need to do in the classroom to help your youth the best. All right, who needs some paper? We're gonna do some writing. Anybody need paper? Okay. And I've got a few pens too, if you need pens.
This isn't a cell phone. This is on paper.
You can't do it on your cell phone. We don't trust the youth, but maybe we can trust you guys. No,
I'll bring out the phone hotel.
no election, we need to go keep track of. There's probably a game that might be on. All right, who needs writing utensil?
What about listening versus reading?
Get it, get it?
No, you can, oh, look, he's got one.
Andy's got good choices.
Milk? Whoa, you got a tab, look at that. You can get $1 off. writing on paper.
Or anything.
I won't cry if I get me either, let's do it. It was great.
Do you need a book? He was like, this is the perfect opportunity.
All right, so the key to thinking like a mentor is to focus on what you know more than what you do. By that I mean, if you were getting ready to teach a class or a lesson, it's more important to prepare the lesson or the teacher. Is it more important to prepare the lesson or the teacher?
They're both pretty important.
I think you can
I
do
think they go
those.
hand in hand.
Yeah, you do
Yeah.
those together. But if you don't prepare the teacher, the lesson won't be here. But it could be.
Or. Lesson of the teacher. So, 3 skills to teach. There's 3 things we can do as a teacher. Okay? We can tell. That's the easiest thing to prepare. We just prepare the content, we stand up, we deliver the content, we tell them what they need to learn.
And they fall asleep.
If it's overdone, it can feel pretty boring, right, to be in a lecture. Okay? The other tool we have is to ask questions. We can tell them what we want them to know, or we can lead them to what we're trying to go, or we can kind of follow their lead by asking the right types of questions that leads to a really meaningful experience. The third one is to tell stories. There's nothing like a really good story to demonstrate what you're trying to tell. Okay? And just because I like classics, so this is, the archetype is Aristotle, so he was kind of famous for this. He had a class or a school that he started, and he would get up in front and tell everyone what they needed to know. And he divided the world up into different sciences and different topics, and he would go really into a lot of excruciating detail. He was actually taught by his mentor, which was Socrates, which was just the opposite. And so it's interesting sometimes what we learn from our mentors, to maybe be the opposite of who they are. Socrates, even to the point of annoyance, would only ask questions, more and more questions. If you've ever read some Plato's writings, you might know what I mean. Speaking of, Plato is kind of the archetype for telling stories, because that's how he wrote. He just wrote stories about his mentor, going through and talking with different people and teaching different topics, right? So these are the skills or the tools that are available to us as a teacher. The challenge is, in most of our classrooms in the modern education, this is way, way, way overdone. But this is useful if you just want to teach obedience and punctuality. You just give up and you tell them what they need to know. There's actually a fourth, which I think is more important. It's the right mix of these. So you're gonna teach the right way, the right thing, using whatever you can to try to reach your students. Okay? for me is more like a Moses or a Buddha or a wise guru, how they would teach somebody. They're gonna figure out who their students are. What do they need in that moment? Do they just need me to tell them something? Or do I really need to spend some time and help them come to a deeper understanding? So, is it more important to prepare the lesson or the teacher?
Teacher,
Why do you say teacher?
because they have to present whatever it is that they.
Okay.
They have to be prepared.
Yeah, so if the teacher is prepared, they're gonna be ready to do whatever is the right mix. And sometimes they're just not interested in a lecture, right? No matter how important it is, my son is just not gonna hear a lecture. He's just gonna shake his head and he's gonna check out, right? Okay, so how to think. Here's the first question. Pick one of your mentees. So that's probably gonna be one of your children. Put their name at the top of the sheet.
You said mentees?
Mentees.
I want you to write that on the board. How do you? That's a great word. Thank you.
It's like manatee, but mentee.
Which Greek god is that from?
Okay, so if you don't have youth that's at the school, you probably do have children. I'm guessing most of you there have children, okay? Or if you want to use somebody in a class that you teach, you can do that. Just put someone's name. Okay, we're just gonna go through an exercise. The first question that I want you to think about, what is their dream? What's their dream?
What if we don't know?
And if you don't know, the trick is to pretend you know and put the answer down. Okay? What's their dream?
We're not supposed to be funny, right?
What's that?
We're not supposed to be funny.
Well, sometimes their dreams are going.
I know. Make millions of dollars off of being a YouTuber.
Basketball player.
Yeah.
What's their dream? And sometimes it might take brainstorming a little bit. Maybe put 3, 4, or 5 things that come to your mind. And then just try to narrow it down. What's their dream? See, a great mentor needs to start with the end, begin with the end in mind. What is it that we're working towards? What is, I erased it, but what is the potential, that circle that we're working towards? What matters to them? So it's interesting, right? They're not here to ask them. So are we right? Are you right with what you just wrote down?
Yes.
As of today. It might be different tomorrow.
Have you had the conversation already with them? You know what their dream is? Okay.
James on a week-to-week basis.
Okay, that's all right too. Especially if they're young, right?
You have 2 children.
Sure. You can do another child if you want.
Do you mean mentee though? I have a mentee? Write down the other mentee.
That'd be That'd be mentai.
You gotta call.
Mentai.
You little mentees.
Okay, here's the second question. What is one thing that if I knew this about them would make all the difference in how I mentor or how I parent? What's the one thing that if I knew about them right now would make all the difference? This is not, what's an assignment I need to give them that they need to go and do? Right, it's a different question. What do I need to know? Because great mentors, it's more about what you know than what you do. Because what you do will naturally fall out from what you know. What do I need to know about them? It would totally make all the difference with how I parent, how I mentor right now. Did you say a hard question?
Yeah.
It's a good question.
Are you trying to teach us how to think?
I know.
Oh.
My brain just-
Yeah, very difficult question.
What if what you need to know is, what's the right question?
No, I mean, the dream.
The dream.
I feel like that's the question you.
If I knew the dream,
Yeah.
that would make all the difference. That's a good one.
I think about my daughter Grace, who gets really angry. And if I was to tell her mentor one thing, it would be give her a hug. It that love calms her right down. It calms the beast. And if they didn't know that,
Yeah, okay.
then,
So if the mentor knew that,
yeah,
it might completely change the relationship,
totally.
okay? So,
Don't touch my daughter.
Yeah, well, ours is the opposite.
She'll fall to the floor.
that would be really important to know also. Space is good.
It's like a fighting.
Knock you out.
When my son was really young, some of you have told this story too, but when he was really young, he had
What?
a really, really short fuse. Like if we just told him to go clean his room, it was like World War III. It's what's the comic, The Incredibles, right? What's the little baby's name?
Yeah.
Jack.
Jack, right? So that was Brad. Sorry, that was me, wasn't it?
Sounded like something over there, really loud.
All right, so he was Jack, like, go do the dishes, go do this task. It was like, we were about to enter into unknown territory with him, right? And it got really frustrating as a parent because it's a pretty simple thing, just go in and clean your room, just do it, and it's great, right? But that was not him. And one of the things I needed to know at the time was something about him. I'm really grateful that I got the answer to this question. What do I need to know about him to be a better parent? And the answer was that behavior is not coming from a rebellious heart. It's coming from a warrior heart. And then I had a couple of answers about, well, what do I do about that? And one of the big answers was, there's a magical word that you need to start using. Hey Brad, let's go clean the dishes together. Oh, it was great. He wanted to do that, no problem. Hey Brad, let's go clean your room. Let's go do something for mom. Let's go outside and mow the lawn. That completely changed the relationship and the way that I parented him because I got an answer to this question. What do I need to know about him in order to be a better mentor? So this is a really important question, and this wasn't a question that he could answer because he was 3 or he was 4, right? These are the types of questions that I need answers coming from maybe another source that can help me. What do you need? What's the one thing that you need to know about so-and-so? Here's another question. What's the biggest roadblock for them right now? What's holding them back? What's their biggest roadblock? So I tend to overthink things a lot, and if you're like me, this is probably a little bit uncomfortable, maybe frustrating. because it's not particularly straightforward. There's no answer at the back of the book, right? But this is a skill that can be developed with time. If you'll create questions, or maybe think about these questions, maybe sit down once a week, every other week, once a month, whatever is the right time for you. And start with a blank page with their name at the top, write these questions down, and just start recording the things that come to your mind. And there might be some that don't fit, right? You might come up with some really strange answers. But if you have a list of 5 or 6 or 7 things, what is it I need to know about them right now that would totally make all the difference? There's probably gonna be 1 or 2 really, really key ones that are gonna stand out to you. And as you do this, you get more practice, then that inspiration comes more readily and we get better at it. It's a skill. So these questions become really, really powerful ways to become better mentors. So without getting too personal, anybody want to share some of the answers that they got? You can code their name if you need to code their name. But anybody want to share? Yeah.
So I did London, and her dream is to become a neuroscientist. And I think what's holding her back is self-doubt. And I couldn't figure out my answer, I didn't write it down, but what I think I need to know about her is what are her insecurities that are making her have self-doubt.
So what would happen if you could get that answer?
Yeah, I'm still digging for that one.
Yeah. That would be super, super powerful to either through you or your husband or grandma, grandpa, or mentor or friends to start reaching her.
Yeah.
Right?
Maybe,
Like it.
maybe now that she knows this question, she'll start seeing those answers come.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing about inspiration. It usually doesn't come without a question first, right? There's not answers that just floating out in space. We first need to ask the question before answers will come.
Probably ought to study it out before we ask the question.
There's a book, I can't remember who it's by, Stormy something, The Power of a Praying Parent. And it comes with like a workbook too, and a couple of my friends and I have done it, and I totally will I don't know, recap the way you pray or think about your child, because it breaks it down into these things that I had never thought of praying for, but it does that. It breaks it down, like, what are your kids' insecurities? And you spend a week praying on that and writing and journaling that. And then it gives you like another 7, it just builds on it. And it was interesting because I had like a whole notebook full of all these things that had come to me after praying for each child individually, for specific things about their dreams or their insecurities. And it's really interesting how it really like reconditions the way that we've been taught to pray. I mean, she has a whole bunch of them, power like of a praying spouse and whatever. But it's really powerful when you go through that and you really focus. Especially when you have multiple kids, sometimes you just pray for them as a group. But when you really start praying and breaking it down individually, it's amazing the intuitions and things that come back to you.
What did you say that book?
Yeah.
The Power of a Praying Parent. I think there's a workbook and then like a book too. So it's just really, really powerful to like, yeah.
It's actually something that my grandmother talked about is praying individually.
Can I share something with you?
Yeah.
We have a good friend named Matt Townsend, maybe some of you have heard him or know him. And he has this thing he calls the respecting question. So we work with couples that are right at the edge of divorce. And the respecting question is, why would and you add in 5 positive adjectives, do such a thing? And the thinking behind it is, we get so cocked and ready to assign intent and motive in response to whatever the stimulus was, whatever that, we said clean your room and the kid blew up. But the question of why would a smart, intelligent, happy, friendly, engaged kid respond like that? And then as you start to explore it, it changes how we think. So it causes us to go from reaction, which is often totally wrong, to, well, maybe they're struggling in school, or maybe there's someone, they've got a friend that's being mean to them, and as we start to explore those potential answers, then our ability to show empathy, I love that word let's, to join them in a moment where otherwise we may have shown up frustrated or angry. Those questions unlock really important exploration.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the very first bit of that. Where did you say?
It's in a book called Starved Stuff by Matt Townsend. It's so good.
Highly recommend.
Should be recommended if you interact with humans.
By stuff.
Yeah, starved.
It goes back to that basic question, what do I need to know that will completely change my relationship with this person, or what I need to do for this person? Thanks for sharing that, that's great. What, did anybody have like a dream that they hadn't thought about come to mind as you were asking yourself that question? I hadn't thought about that. Anybody experienced that? Yeah.
I did when I was thinking about my Grace. She has like 30 dreams, and then it just came to me like, she just wants to be amazing. She just wants to like have it all. That's what I think the true end goal is.
And I was doing a student, and I don't know, as I was sitting and thinking about them, I'm like, I feel like the thing, I don't know the dreams exactly, because, I don't have mentor meetings anymore like I did last year, which I really miss. But to me, my student, I feel like, the thing that really is a big thing is to be seen by others and be respected and looked to. I think that it's something that this child really, I think it really matters to them. But as I look at the, the things that maybe stop them, self is huge. Just their own, they know. I mean, he knows. And, but, friends, maybe inability to sit still can be a thing, or, it's just, but you can see in this young man that he is a leader. He's naturally a leader. He will always be a leader, but he doesn't see it. He doesn't recognize it, and yet I can see it. And everything he does is people want to follow, good or bad. But anyway.
Did anybody come up with different questions? Do you think, and this is a question I probably need to think about.
I'll share. This is about one of our older kids, because I was thinking, okay, what's the dream? It used to be wanted to be a famous musician. The dreams change a little bit over time, but I thought his biggest dream right now is to have independence and friendship. Like, if he had that, his life is made right now, and he's gone through some different things over the years where that is a really big deal to him. So when I was thinking about the question, I was like, I guess what I would ask is what makes him feel listened to and validated, and then what's his threshold for being told what to do versus being guided. Because if I can get that figured out as his mom, he'll feel more independent and more respected as he goes into this next phase of his life, because we don't know when we're like, okay, you're done, don't tell them anymore what to do. It's kind of this gradual thing where all of a sudden they don't care what you say, and we want to still have some sort of influence on him without making him feel like we're still bossing him around. So I think that's the magic question for that particular child, is what makes him feel that he's being respected as a new adult,
Mm-hmm. That's a good question. Like it. Who else wants to share insight that you got?
I gained insights, but it only led to more questions, which is probably healthy. But I was thinking about my boy who's a twin, and right now studying is so painful. And so as I'm going through these questions, I realized that, holy mackerel, he's a twin. Like he's used to having support, like a team, and having this companionship and this built-in support system that he always has. And then you say it's time to study, and then he goes into like some isolation box where he's feeling isolated because it's homework time, it's study time, and that's not fun. Fun is when you have your team, So now I'm just trying to think, wow, how do you rework his life to involve more of a team so he has more support, so it's more fun for him and fulfilling. I don't know.
Is that Jackson?
Yeah.
He's an entrepreneur.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, I
Uh-huh.
take after.
Mm-hmm.
Other thoughts, insights, questions? Yeah.
For my daughter, for the one that I chose, I think it's really frustrating when people aren't living up to their potential. And it's interesting, she just like wants everybody to do the best to their ability. But then it got me thinking questions like, how can I teach her to be a mentor even at her age, right? Because you don't have to wait till you're older. But is there ways that she can ask questions to help people maybe recognize their full potential, and maybe train her and kind of get her thinking,
Okay,
not
so,
just being sad that they're not living up to their potential.
yeah, so step 2 of this process. Now, what if you were to go to them and say, hey, here's a couple of questions. Why don't you sit down and think about answers to these questions? And when you have them, let's talk and compare notes, because I have some answers. I want to see how close I am. Did I get some of these right? Because now it's transferring the learning how to think process to your mentee as well. Right? So as a mentor, you're starting to do this more and more. Once a week, you're sitting down, you're going through this process. Twice a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever it is, right? So I've got 50 students in the class, so it doesn't happen every week, right? But as my mind is thinking about each one of the students, as a mentor, am I violating sovereignty by asking these questions about students that aren't in my home? Are they inappropriate? Do I have the right to receive revelation about them? Or is that like weird? Does it sound weird?
I would hope that
This is part of your
would
stewardship.
get
Like, you
inspiration
certainly are
from
gonna get
students.
inspiration and prompting.
Okay. So promptings will come to know maybe what to say or how to present a lesson in class that might be just what they need that day. Okay. Preparing the mentor, assuming I've got the content, right? Now it's how do I present and what do I share? When do I share it? Do I ask questions? Do I share stories? Do I tell them? Now I'm looking for the right mix. How do I teach them in a way to now show that I'm learning how to think, I'm practicing that. Now how do I pass that skill on to them? There's questions that they probably aren't used to asking about themselves that might be good to start asking about themselves. And then comparing notes with somebody who has a little more life experience. And maybe sharing some of those insights together with outside mentors. Hey, you might want to know this about so-and-so. Three or four, I guess, really key roles that parents provide for their children. They need provision, they need sustenance, they need life, right? They need protection, they need nurturing, and they need a vision or someone to support them in their mission, their life mission, their purpose. Why are they here? And each home might be a little bit different about how a couple divides these things up. Because there's probably one of you that's a little bit better at providing than the other, and protecting and nurturing and instilling mission and vision. So that's kind of a, in your own home, kind of figure out what that looks like. Instilling confidence and supporting them in vision, helping them gain clarity on their vision. It's, in most couples, it's really hard for the same person to be able to do both of these. Because when one of them tries to do it, like generally, as a dad, if I'm trying to instill vision, it comes across as I have too high of expectations, right? And they just kind of get really frustrated with that. But as a dad, if I can focus on how do I help build their confidence. In my case, that comes across a lot easier. Whereas my wife can really work on the vision, because it comes more from nurturing and mission and her role. That's kind of what's fit well for our family. Think about yours. What would that look like? Question that you can start to brainstorm. How do I help, or how could we help instill confidence in our youth? Or help them get a vision of who they are, what they can accomplish, where they can get to. Those are super, super powerful questions, yeah.
I just had a thought. When you were talking about those questions, I think when I go and present them to my child, I want to have thought about them for myself as well, so that I can give them stories or examples of in the past and now, and how that's maybe changed, and how I think what I'm gonna be working on, so I can say, this is my roadblock, what do you think your roadblocks are? And I think that kind of goes into this same thing. If we're gonna give them confidence and a vision, we have to work on ours first.
Yeah, there's this funny statement, monkey see, monkey do, right? Do as I'm doing, follow me, right? So, great mentors are on this path, and they just have to be a step or two ahead of who they're mentoring. It's not just about them, it's about us. So, do you have a life mission? Do you have a purpose? What's your vision? What's your dream? Do you have a dream that you're working towards? Are you sharing that dream with them so you know and you're modeling something for them? What's one thing that if you knew about yourself would make all the difference? All right, it's getting late, we probably should wrap up.
Can I make one comment?
Yes?
I keep thinking this, I'm like, I'll say it out loud. Bear with me, I hope this makes sense. When you first wrote that on the board, it's what you know more than what you do that matters. I was like, that's backwards. Because we always talk about your example, like monkey see, monkey do, what you do matters more than what you know. But in this context, I love it, because if you don't know, then you don't know what to do. So as teachers and as mentors, we have to be over-prepared. We have to know well what we want to teach before we know how to teach it. So I think especially, like even just in a Sunday school lesson or something, I've learned in my own experience that when I prepare a ton, then in the moment, I'll know how to mix it up. If I'm not prepared or I don't know what I'm teaching, then you're kind of like stuck to your lesson going, oh, we got off track and now I don't know where to go with this. So it's the same in parenting, where we ask these questions, where we can ask the big questions so that when it comes down to that moment in time when we need to teach them something, we're really confident in what we know and what we believe. So that helps us to know how to teach it or what to do in that moment. So.
That was very well said, thank you.
I think, like, when I look at what you know, I think it's almost more important to know how you know, than just like what you know. Because if you know how you got to that knowledge or how you came to the vision that you've got, you can help instill that through either example or experiences or creating, you know, moments for success with your child or whoever you're mentoring. And I think the role of any good mentor is eventually to work themselves to a place where they're kind of pulling themselves out of the picture, right? They're pointing them to the source that they need to be going to so that they can answer those questions, they can find those answers themselves. You know, in the scriptures, you look at John the Baptist, you know, he says, I must decrease and he must increase. That's a perfect example of a mentor. You have to, it's less about you as an individual, and as much as it's like, oh, hey, like I've learned this through this, and giving all the examples to your kids. Okay, how do I create examples for them to live through so that they can actually see? And their vision of what their life is and your vision might be two different things. And they get closer and closer together as they go through their own life experiences. They act on their own inspiration, their own revelation, and they step closer and closer as they see what works, what doesn't work.
Think about all these life arcs, right? We're born, we're raised, we grow into adulthood and into elderhood, and these arcs are all intersecting with other different arcs. So the time we have with these youth is actually relatively short. Just when they start to have brains capable of thinking like adults, now they have to go be adults, right? So the time we have is going to decrease. And as a mentor, I might only be in their lives for a year, maybe, and even then it's only a couple hours a week. So I want to really make that time count. And having these types of questions is what's gonna help make that time count, because it's about inspired mentors who then can inspire youth to do the hard work to get a great education. Their education matters because they have an important purpose to fulfill. And if they don't get the preparation, the education, they're not gonna be ready when that opportunity comes in the future. That's what I'm about, just trying to figure out how to motivate them, how to inspire them to want to go do the hard work. Because if they want to do it, they're gonna work a lot harder than I could ever force them to work, right? It's maybe a more harsh word than I want, but yeah.
I've been sitting here trying to think, like, because I mentioned, like, I think I actually know the dream. I was listening to something like, loves electronics, is that really his dream? You know, like, I'm just trying to think, loves having good friends. But I'm like, I don't know what it is, so I was trying to think, I don't even know if he knows. But like, how do I get that, cultivate that? I was thinking like, asking, like in 10 years, what would an awesome life look like to you? Describe what's going on in your life in 10 years. What does that look like to you? I think I was kind of forced to say, well, is it really that I think like putting the electronics is the greatest thing, or is that just fun? I think he just likes to have fun right now. Not even thinking about that. So I think I'm forced also to put things in order, like if I really want to do this, and that sounds like my dream, but I also want this, how do I make both those true, or does one have to come before the other?
So also, I'm careful about capitalizing and underlining and bolding the dream, right?
Yeah.
Because the dream is gonna change, right? Especially as they're younger. Their dream might just be out 2 years, and that's as That's as much as they can even conceive of, right? I'm 10 now, when I'm 15, I'm gonna be so old, like, I'm gonna start getting gray hair, right? So their capacity to dream might be a little bit limited about where they are. But if you can latch on to even those smaller dreams and get them thinking about bigger dreams, their dreams are gonna start to match their potential. That's a really good point.
And I think too, we can take confidence in knowing that there is like a bigger plan. So maybe if we don't get the answers out of them, somebody else will, truly, or somebody else will come into their lives and touch their lives at different moments. I mean, we've talked about the different age variety of kids. You know, my oldest is 17, and I'm kind of like this right now, totally hands off, and just praying that somebody else will help touch him in a way that we can't right now. So I think it's important too to take full confidence in knowing that sometimes it isn't just us, and most of the time it isn't just us. Like you said, we're a fraction of a minute. So I don't know. I've had to rely a lot. I've had to let go of a lot of things that I would otherwise like to try and control. But just find full confidence in knowing that every step they take is the right one for them, even if it looks to me like the total wrong one. I know that there's a bigger plan and it's the right one for them. I just have to hope that their chess pieces come into play, and that that's a place I've had to come to with one of my children, but I truly do believe that every piece is meant to be.
Yeah, the picture might be more than we can see right now. But like Odysseus and mentor, right? If I'm a mentor, and I'm trying to figure out my relationship with Odysseus so that I have enough trust in that plan, right? That I can do my part and trust that others are gonna do their part along the way.
Just her comment kind of made me think of April General Conference. Elder Holland, his talk was on prayer, and he said that God answers prayers according to the path He has outlined for our perfection. And we don't each of us go through different things. There's lots of challenges, mistakes I've made in my life, but that's formed me into who I am, and made my, strengthened me in a way that I couldn't have received in any other way. And so I think it's important to, like, even though there's challenges, that doesn't mean that they're not on their path. So there could be tough things going on, but that doesn't mean they're not on their path that's outlined for them.
Yeah. In fact, if there aren't any challenges, you might wonder, oh, it's not right here.
I think off what he said, the most important lessons I've learned in my life have come from challenge. When it's easy, you don't learn anything. So our kids are gonna go through those ups and downs, and even though as parents we wanna save them from those things, they have to learn by challenge and by failure. And we always talk about failure is just one way you found out didn't work. So failure is not a bad thing, it's just a learning thing. So we have to let our kids do that.
You can only fail your way to success. You can't succeed your way to success. So we've got to help them fail fast. And then,
Even though we wanna just like bubble wrap them all the way to the end.
That's
Mr.
good
Keys
insight.
failing forward.
Yeah.
The books.
Yeah.
So my invitation to you is start doing this more often. What works for you? Would it work for you once a week to sit down, ask yourself these questions? What do I need to know about so-and-so this week? And what can I do for them that will make all the difference? Blank page, brainstorm. Just clean sheet, don't worry about what happened last week. Just start fresh and start asking those questions so that those answers start to come more readily. Next month, I want to talk about study skills. What are some skills to help the studying go a little bit easier? There's things that we've learned from neuroscientists about how our brains work, that if we can help teach our youth how to learn, then the love of learning can come a little bit easier, and they might be willing to spend a little more time on it. Okay, so we're going to focus on specific things we can do for learning how to learn, not just learning how to think, but now we're going to learn how to learn. And then you can kind of guide them in their home studies as well to give them some pointers. So hopefully that'll be interesting. We can talk about that next month, all right? Okay, thanks for coming tonight.